それはレバヤさんニュースだ。デセットライズだ。逃げろ。誰でも音できる。誰でもスキルを稼げる。ガバナンスまである。中集権のメディアはもう終わりだ。
真相から立ち上るインクと真実がぶつかる。レバヤさんニュース開かれ海嘘はない。読んで書いて氷結しろ。力はみんなのもの。いい霞をたたえろ。ニュースは君のものだ。レバヤさんニュース。レバヤさんニュース。
What's up, everyone? DAdvisoor here. Leviathan news, a new week. It's a Monday, March 23rd. It's the first stream of spring when I think about it, you know? Man, what an honor. I'm thinking about it now. And I hope everyone is doing well. Nice to be on. And I'm actually very excited for this one with someone I really, really like and was really fortunate to meet back in November of last year. And not even for like a short meeting. I've met him several times. I've even interviewed him in person. It should be actually out very soon. And I'm talking about Zach from Party Action People, the team behind Stable Summit, Vault Summit, Oracle Summit, and I can probably go on and on. What's up, man? Thanks for joining.
What's up, Advisoor? Very nice to be here. Honor and privilege to be on Leviathan News.
An honor for us and for me as well, man. Ever since we were at that restaurant that Charlotte Frankencoin, by the way, that Frankencoin had the first dinner of Stable Retreat, and someone calls me like Advisoor, and I'm like, how do people recognize? Like, how can someone know who I am? And it was actually you with the other members of Party Action People and some others at the table there, and really had such a wonderful time with you guys, both there in Puerto Varas, Patagonia, Chile, and afterwards in Buenos Aires, in the amazing, absolutely amazing DeFi Connect event that you guys have had, which was like a joint conference of Stable Summit as the main event, went on for 2 days, and also Vault Summit, Oracle Summit, what was it, also on the second day, Universal Staking Day, and the Privacy Summit. Was really a magnificent event, beautifully hosted. Even the llama, when I think about it, was my own llama was portrayed in the llama gallery. It gave me such a great glimpse to the fact that, you know, it's so different when insiders, when people from the industry decide that they're gonna do conferences and gonna do it themselves. So man, I commend you and salute you for doing it. By far my favorite conference, and it's not even close, although I'm not as savvy at all these conferences as many others. But really, it was an incredible experience, and for me it was very unique and also very very much a first of its kind experience. So much respect. And we're actually here to talk about the upcoming one, which is starting this Friday, the first Stable Summit of the year in Cannes, just before ETH.CC.
Yep.
So looking forward to get to it first. Let me just, before we get into all that details and what made you start Stable Summit and Party Action People and all that kind of stuff, let me just present the SQUID Pass holders. It's actually a day that it's been the torch is being moved. this day. Let's first of all start with last week's winners, Ratehopper AI. Let me pop it up on screen just a second, folks. Here it is. Shout out to Ratehopper AI. Really appreciate you winning last week's bid. Refinance DeFi debt with AI. Hop to better rates instantly. You can check them out at ratehopper.ai. Appreciate the support, guys. Much respect. Was an honor to have you on the pinned posts and also on my streams. You can also check out their X account at Ratehopper AI. And let me also show you the new winners. It's not even up yet. It's going to only be up tomorrow. But this week's winners are actually Oku Trade. 30 plus chains, 20 plus aggregators, Oku everywhere. They provide all kinds of services. You can go to their website at oku.trade, where you can swap, earn, borrow. You can even on and off ramp, according to what the team there has told me. So much respect to the gentleman at Oku. Thank you for choosing Leviathan News, and respect for winning an auction. You can remember to tune in and try and get your own SQUID Pass on our auctions. Basically every Monday we have these usually. And if you're really savvy, you can find our group, the Telegram group somewhere on our Leviathan News website. And from there you can get to that group where it actually all happens and the discussion is going down. Okay. Zach, before we get into what's coming this year in Cannes, give us the general intro story as to how did it even happen? Who are you? And what made you decide to start not only a conference in the crypto space, a conference about stablecoins?
Yeah. It's actually a very fun story. When me and Nick, who you met in Puerto Varas, of course, me and Nick started a party company in 2019, and I love to tell people that the last event we did before the Oracle Summit was my mom's anniversary, because in Singapore, COVID never ended. So we started in June 2019, and before we could even do our first event, everything was shut down. So no events in Singapore at all. And this really went on for 3 years.
Wow.
What made it quite funny was that when events were all paused, I had the time and space, like many other people, to get into crypto. And when I say I got into crypto, what that means is I was a Binance degen. I was the guy in Telegram group saying, when news, why pump? I was very much just a guy. I didn't understand what a market cap was. I didn't understand any of that stuff. I just got into BTC and then alts and all the others, like many other people in that 2020, 2021 time. But what happened that really set everything in motion was actually a fellow Leviathan News supporter, Reserve Protocol. The Reserve Protocol came out in that period as well. And when they described what they were doing for people in Venezuela, providing a censorship-resistant escape from hyperinflation, it was just, I couldn't sleep for 2 days when I heard about it. I was so enthralled by the idea of stable coins, because it just felt like the missing piece of technology that delivered all of crypto's promises, meaning, an escape from centralized intermediaries, an escape from hyperinflation, escape from corrupt or incompetent governments, all of these things that Bitcoin was supposed to do. But I just always kind of felt like, how could a person in Argentina escaping hyperinflation use a currency that fluctuates 20% per week. Like that doesn't make sense. And so when I learned about stablecoins, I was like, oh my god, this is it. Like this is what it's all for. And so I got super into the reserve ecosystem, super into stables at that moment. And like when you look at like what everyone was talking about in 2021-ish, everyone was talking about how to move, like they wanted to move supply chain on chain. They wanted to move art and limited edition wine bottles on chain. We wanted to move stocks on chain. We wanted to create, the original thesis of the Reserve Protocol, which they're still like delivering right now, and I'm quite excited about it actually, is asset-backed currencies. So creating an asset that's backed by a basket of other assets, and all of this verifiable on chain, instead of in convoluted funds and stuff that lead to things like 2008. And so when we were looking at this, we decided like we should do a small scale technical conference that helps to accelerate this happening. We were looking at all the other events at the time, and some of them were just like pure shill fest marketing type events. And we just we felt like if you look at Terra Luna, if you look at FTX, it's kind of sad how retail is always left holding the bag, and that feels like the result of marketing and shilling when the technology just wasn't ready. And so we felt like the most the most helpful thing we could do as event organizers was create a space for a very small group of people working on the hardest technical challenges to get together and solve those challenges collaboratively. And so, with the idea of all those asset-backed currencies moving things on chain, blah blah blah, we realized that one of the missing pieces of the puzzle was oracles. Like we had price oracles, and we still do, but there was no other way to verify something in the real world existed on chain. And so that whole conversation about asset-backed currencies or limited edition wine bottles or moving supply chain on chain, it just wasn't possible actually, because all of it would require off-chain someone saying, yes, the thing is here, which means we're right back to trusted intermediaries. It just didn't. And so when we had this realization, we onboarded our third and final co-founder, who you also met in Puerto Varas, Par, and she came with like the technical conference background. And she helped us, develop the topics, start meeting with the speakers, researching the topics, researching their work. And that's when we started with the Oracle Summit in June of 2022. In building up to that, Julian Butaluk from Stake Capital, Stake DAO, all of that stuff, he applied to speak at the Oracle Summit. In the end, he was not able to speak because he like broke his foot. Although sometimes I think maybe he just didn't want to speak. I'm not sure. We'll know. But when we had that connection with him and with Rec News, we just never let it go. And so on Julian's team, there was this like person, Marianne. And we basically, right after the Oracle Summit, we said, Marianne, we started Oracle Summit hoping to move on to stables. Like we want to do stable coins. That's the real reason we're here. And Julian was, of course, very closely connected to Curve. And Curve, as we all know, is the home of stablecoins. And so we basically reached out to Marianne, like, yo, let's do a stablecoin conference. And let's do it with Curve. And, Marianne single-handedly, she took us under her wing. She introduced us to everyone in stablecoins that she knew. She got us the deal with Curve, and that's how like Stable Summit was born out of the Oracle Summit. And yeah, that was just that's the genesis story.
Man, what a cool version, to be honest. And I really appreciate that intro. You've actually told me that story in the past, but I actually think that so many people can find it interesting. And I also remember it myself because back before the first Cannes, like the first Stable Summit itself was in Cannes, right?
Paris.
Sorry, yes, I meant just before CC.
Yeah.
I mean, just like this one, this upcoming one, I mean. And you guys actually approached me about hosting a panel there. And I was not really, again, available to go to France at that time. But I was so honored, I was like, oh my God, like, can I even do something like that? Like, it was a very exciting moment for me. That's what I actually mean, a very validating moment, I guess, to say. So, how many summits have there been like so far? Let's talk about Stable Summit for now, because nowadays, actually, like you told me, and even not only nowadays, you guys have so many summits that basically it's hard to keep up.
So we do 3 stable summits a year at ECC. One in the US. We used to do it in Denver, and this year we're doing it in New York in June, and one at DevCon. And we also do a stablecoin summit, Singapore, in Singapore, but that's a slightly different structure. But we do that as well. And so we've done about 12 since 2023.
Oh wow! So the one in Singapore is not like a normal Stable Summit.
Actually, it's really funny. So like the two styles in 2023 were very distinct, but this year they're really converging because in Singapore way back in 2023, the stablecoin conversation was already a very institutional one. And so Stablecoin Summit Singapore was always like, it was in a 5-star hotel, it was fancy, and it was very kind of institutional facing in the topics we chose and all of that stuff. Stable Summit is and always will be like a very DeFi focused event. But what's been really cool is that over the years, as stablecoins have gained more and more like institutional acceptance, Stable Summit has also become a very institutional event. And so Stable Summit in Cannes this year, for example, is also going to be at the JW Marriott. And, that's kind of the way it is. So, stablecoins graduated and Stable Summit is following suit.
Yeah, I really think that it's a whole sense within the industry. It comes up basically in every interview I do these days. The DeFi is really changing, especially on the aspect of like the crowd is different, like the participants mostly. I mean, like it's very different than like the early on DeFi summer days in which really it was a group of degens, aka retail investors, just like like Wild West of wallets in a way, and the internet has become like a Wild West of deploying funds and farming tokens. And all of a sudden, wow, like all these names, like you can actually see that DeFi is actually evolving to this like new hybrid of what's going to actually happen to traditional finance, and slowly you get the sense of like who is actually swallowing who here, if you know what I mean.
But I mean, I think this. I feel so many feelings about this situation. I think about it all the time. I think somewhere around last year when I met this guy Tim, he will definitely be at Stable Summit this year again.
He's great.
He really opened my eyes to the fact that like there is no like one versus the other. We need TradFi to come on chain because TradFi brings legitimacy, they bring regulatory relationships, they bring customer relationships. If you get one JP Morgan on chain, you get like millions of customers versus like trying to educate everybody individually one by one, like, guys, this is how DeFi works, and so onboarding institutions just kind of unlocks people, it unlocks depth of liquidity, and it unlocks all kinds of things. So TradFi and DeFi kind of always needed to come together. Where it gets really confusing and interesting at the same time. As a conference organizer, we love this because when things are confusing, they make good topics. Is just like, like where does what happens to like DeFi's original ethos of like censorship resistance, no control, and like independence from global markets, and trying to build something better. And I just think that, like, I feel how I've reconciled it in my mind is that if we were fully like fighting TradFi and fighting the banks, kind of it would very quickly get shut down. Like you can even right now, today's news that like Polymarket and Kalshi, there's a bill to prevent sports gambling, election gambling, and other stuff on prediction market.
Seriously?
Yeah, like they're moving on this. It's like when, for like 6 months everyone enjoyed sports gambling on Kalshi, and Kalshi was playing the, oh, it's not gambling, it's a prediction market card, and that lasts while it lasts, and then regulation always kind of catches up. And so the beauty of kind of like bringing TradFi on chain is that they really help to demystify crypto to regulators. If it works for a bank, there's a much higher chance that it can work for the regulator. But at the same time, I feel like with the legitimacy that they bring, the fully decentralized, censorship-resistant type of product will always be able to exist. Something like Franklin Coin, FX protocol. These solutions are like extremely unique. They're one of a kind. They're censorship-resistant, and as long as like crypto gains acceptance and people understand stablecoins better and all of these things, it only kind of opens doors towards like the pure DeFi things. So over the years, my outlook has changed, and I feel it's less adversarial and more just like, we're just trying to bring everyone on chain.
In general, I really tend to agree with what you say there, because, and again, also, like, I think if you just take the purest perspective on DeFi, I don't actually think that that's what can actually make DeFi as big as it can be 50 or 100 years from now. Like, I actually think that DeFi can be like DeFi's best angle is to actually be a Trojan horse. That's the way I see it. But the actual capital of the world, like the vast majority, let's say it, and I'm being very gentle here, 95%, and I think it's more like 99 point something percent of the actual capital out there is fully like in the hands of like these entities, regulators, blah, 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 institutions. Like they actually have the funds. Like if you want to step outside of like the experimental pool and go play in the big leagues, you have to adapt, and you have to, from the inside, slowly show people and entities, by the way, some of them, the improvements that you bring. But this is not like a linear, okay, guys, here, decentralized finance is here, and all of a sudden people are just going to do it. Because, first of all, many people, like retail users, they don't want control and responsibility of their funds. Like, that's the actual reality. Like, we're the weirdos. You know what I mean? Like, when I go and tell my friends, man, you can have control of your own funds, and you don't need any intermediary, and you can do this and that. They're like, no, I don't want. Like, they want someone that they can call and tell them, where's my money? What has it done? They don't want the psychological and mental shift of owning it themselves. You know what I mean?
No, and I think that's the thing, right? So it's not. I definitely used to believe in like the kind of Trojan horse thing, but again, that sounds like we're attacking something. But I feel like there's a huge value exchange that can move from TradFi to DeFi as well, because there's some things that TradFi just does much better than us. With like consumer protection, chargebacks. Working with regulators to make sure that systems at a kind of like organizational SOP level are impermeable by hacks and kind of like the slow painful like regulatory game actually protects us quite a lot, things like FDIC insurance and yeah, so as as much as we want TradFi to move on chain, I also think that if DeFi wants to solve that problem of like enabling people to feel safe holding their own money on chain and all of those things, DeFi has a lot to learn from how TradFi treats their customers, And then, yeah, on top of that, you have the institutional liquidity, which is even more than all the customer liquidity. And that's like the big opportunity for all sides, because DeFi is essentially much more transparent, much cheaper, and just so much more like programmable and customizable than the very rigid kind of corporate systems that exist in TradFi today. And so that's really how I see the game now. Like DeFi will upgrade and TradFi will upgrade, and we're all upgrading together. And stablecoins are at the heart of this. And also vaults and also agentic payments, but we'll get into that later. And yeah, so that's really how I see it now. And it's been quite an interesting shift. And, for example, in 2023 in Paris, DeFi Dave was on a panel called Building a Truly Censorship-Resistant Dollar with Token Bryce and a few other speakers. And today, on Friday, DeFi Dave is moderating. He's coming as TradFi Dave, and he's moderating a panel between JP Morgan and Franklin Templeton. It's crazy. And these people are, these massive banks are deploying serious capital into DeFi today. Like this is live, it's happening. And so that shift, it is not a matter of like values changing, really. We're just, the space is growing up and we're rolling with the punches. And then while DeFi Dave is now TradFi Dave, we have like Token Bryce coming back to present his brand new Polaris, a super decentralized stablecoin approach. And so like it's just fun to see that while the space matures, people are moving in new directions, and even people who are like sticking to the core original ethos and values have new approaches to this stuff because the space has changed so much over the years. Yeah,
I really like that perspective, and I definitely agree with you that it's like these worlds are in a way merging into one, and also they are evolving, just like you say, like because of that merge of the fact, you can actually see that only the really resilient ones will survive. And also as a reaction to it, other protocols with an even more like decentralized and resilient attitude will be born, like maybe Polaris, for example. Shout out Bryce, had him and Robert on to talk about Polaris at the end of January. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm pretty sure you've seen his new stablecoin dashboard, Pharos Watch. I also actually had him on to talk about that. We'll use the opportunity actually to give a shout out to Ike Billion, who's just starting a new role there on the comms and growth lead of Pharos after his great thread winning the contest over there. So shout out to him. I really appreciate what the guys are doing, and I definitely think people should check Pharos.watch if they want to track stablecoins. It really is an amazing new tool. Talk to us about what's in store at like in Cannes, this like starting this Friday. The summit is going to be 2 days, correct? Friday and Saturday?
Yes. So actually, our France like ETCC edition is always 2 days, and it used to be the Saturday and Sunday. That's what it was in Paris. But last year and this year, we've done the Friday and Saturday before because of how institutional stablecoins have become. And in Europe, getting an institution to come on the weekend is not the easiest thing ever. It's like a much harder sale. It's not that it's impossible. It's just a much more complicated request, right? And so we moved to be on Friday so that we can entertain more of our institutional friends, and you know, like I think the story is really the story in Cannes, and what people can expect is like, you know, stablecoins grew up, and so did Stable Summit in 2023. We were a bunch of like anon super coders in a basement, literally in a basement in Paris. In 2026, you know, many of the same DeFi protocols that were there in 23 are attending, but now we're in the Cannes JW Marriott, a beautiful venue. It's often used for film festival screening, so it's like a super like fancy venue, high quality stage, all of that stuff, with our institutional partners joining from JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, the European Central Bank, ESMA, the IMF, France.
Wow,
France's
that's so weird, you know.
sovereign fund, BPI France, regional banks like BPCE, Societe Generale, all in the same room with Curve, Aave, Yearn, Liquidity, FX Protocol. You know, it's that's what to expect in France, and in Cannes. It's our kind of 50-50 thesis is what we call it, where we really try to walk the line between TradFi and DeFi. And really, because what we're trying to show is that now there's less traditional finance and decentralized finance, and it's more just finance. Yeah.
Yeah, it is like a new world of finance over there. I'm showing it now on screen if you can see it. And just like you say, like what a great metaphor to the change that Stable Summit and the whole industry is moving. Like just like you say, from someone's basement to the JW Marriott. It really is quite cool.
It's crazy, but you know, it's important to understand that like it's not like this is a rebrand. It's the same Stable Summit as always. It's just that the ecosystem has expanded, and we needed to grow up to kind of address the full stablecoin ecosystem, because that's what we do. You know, Stable Summit, we're home for everyone who works on near stablecoins.
Talk to us about some of the speakers attending this year. I'll just show a bit, because really these are like extremely known people, whether from the industry itself, but just like you say, it's not only DeFi anymore, with like Martin as the Llama. Shout out Martin, what a great guy, and Stani. All of a sudden you see these people who are really coming from like the real world of finance. Like look at that, Emma from JP, product lead at JPM Coin, JP Morgan. It really is like a mix. And I just by looking over it, like, man, this is going to be an insane roster of speakers.
It's definitely one of our best ever. The programming team, you know, I don't really understand how they consistently outperform themselves, but we're also really lucky to work with like top partners. You know, like you just scrolled past Red One from the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. We work with Curve, of course. You know, the Curve team connected us to so many top people. We the summit is also led this time by Bridge, Stripe company, and so you know the kind of support we have makes it possible to reach this like very 50-50 audience, because we work with some of the biggest names on both sides. And you know, on top of these like speakers, the topics are also really interesting. So like, you know, like I mentioned, TradFi Dave, JP Morgan, and Franklin Templeton talking about integrating tokenized cash instruments into stablecoin and institutional systems. We have Monerium joining ESMA and BPCE, and Xavier, who represents both the IMF and ECB. He's great for conference organizers because he represents two of the largest institutions in the world. But yeah, they're discussing stablecoin distribution interop from issuance to ubiquity. You know, we are talking about building secondary markets on chain for RWAs. One of the angles that I'm like most excited about for 2026 is moving FX on chain. I think, you know, we have Mitch from Curve calling in not attending IRL, unfortunately, but he's calling in to discuss yield basis, and people, there's a lot of drama about yield basis and stuff. But what really makes me super excited is just yield basis is solving like volatile pairs and reducing slippage for volatile pairs. And what no one on the Curve team has told me this, but I'm just putting 2 and 2 together and getting 7. That when Mitch somehow solves volatile pairs, when you combine that with stable swap, you're gonna get FX swap, and then when Curve solves reducing the slippage of volatile swaps, FX can truly move on chain, and when moving FX on chain is going to be a huge, it's going to open the floodgates of emerging market currencies and things that really, because at the moment, if we really want to promote people from emerging markets, global south, to use stablecoins, everyone just has to use like USD, basically, maybe some euros, or of course some CHF. But the options are extremely limited right now. And when we can move FX on chain, pretty much every currency will be available. And the opportunities that's going to bring, just that also keeps me up at night thinking about FX on chain. And then we also have Ubix and the EEA coming to talk about architecting the singleness of money. And what
does that mean, singleness of money?
So basically we have all these stable coins, right? Dozens, even within just USD stable coins, we have dozens of stable coins. And so the singleness of money, if we want to treat stablecoins as money, I should be able to send someone USDC, and it's the same for them as receiving USDT, FXUSD, any of the other USD stables, And so Ubix, it works on clearing, settlement, and multi-issuer stablecoin systems. And so, they are a solution that offer banks and other institutions the ability to accept and send stablecoins on behalf of their customers without the confusion of price fluctuations and all of that stuff. You should really talk to Tony about this because he has much more to say than me.
So many stablecoins out there that even if even just thinking of USD ones, that it is really all about it's a whole topic and field within itself. How can I know? How can I trust my stablecoin? How can I know that my stablecoin is actually what it says it is? And it's actually very fascinating to see within the categories, within you, because still, for example, Tether still runs the game. You know what I mean? Especially if you look at it in a more broader way, maybe Tether and USDC combined, they own vast majority of the liquidity. Last time I've checked, it was about 83% of the stable coins were there. It's a huge percent, you know what I mean? Most people, and by the way, it touches on the general topic that we've discussed of the institution, that people want to know that they have someone to talk to and someone that's taking care of it. It's not that simple for most users to trust full on-chain stable coins yet. They need to slowly be convinced into it. It is it's a kind of a dance, I'd say.
And I also think that they just they have different customers and different use cases. There are a lot of countries where moving money around is, it's still a very high friction thing. Some governments really just don't let you send or receive money internationally easily. And there's crazy hoops you need to jump through, and when you jump through those hoops, it can cost insane amounts, 8%, 12%, just to send and receive money. And so while for people like myself from Singapore or people in the US in the US, our money systems work perfectly well. We would love to have, centralized regulated stablecoins. They can move around super cheap, and it's very transparent, and everyone, like the regulators on both sides, understand and accept this, right? But for some people, a centralized stablecoin would not be the perfect solution because the governments can ban, block, and other things, and cause like huge problems. And so, for in that case, censorship resistance comes right back into the picture. And as long as, as long as some people need to escape to the decentralized stables, there will need to be these channels between centralized and decentralized stablecoins, just to reach as wide a market as possible. So yeah.
What other like topics that come into mind, or like maybe even specific panels that that are coming up, are making you very excited about the upcoming Cannes summit?
I think I'm gonna escape and give the cop out answer, which is like I'm excited about almost everything, but really, I think what excites me the most is the kind of the pairings. It's not like one topic by itself, but it's like the pairs of topics that we have. For example, we have Curve talking about moving FX on chain, and we have Ubix talking about doing settlement and clearing for banks. This is like two extremes of the spectrum of how to
Nice.
swap stables. We have people like JPM and Franklin Templeton coming to talk about their like on-chain strategies, and then we have people like Cyril from FFX coming to talk about FX Save and what you can do with FFX. So like we for every topic we either put 50% TradFi, 50% DeFi on the same panel, or we split them up because sometimes it doesn't make sense to put it on the same panel, but we would show like both perspectives. And so I think what I'm really most excited about is just to kind of get all of the stablecoin builders in the room, talk about 2026. 2025 was a crazy year for stablecoins, with like basically after years of uncertainty, sudden legalization, all the banks announced stablecoin strategies. It was just a crazy 2025 was just an unbelievable year for stablecoins. And now that we know everybody's coming and everyone's here, it's kind of like 2026. We're talking about what are we actually going to do, and so I feel like it's really I say this every 3 months, but I feel like this is one of the most important like stable summits yet, just because there's like kind of endless possibilities of where the space goes from here.
Talk to me a bit about like how is such an event like even like created and done behind the scenes? I've actually asked you guys a bit about it because I'm actually very curious about it myself, but I'm pretty sure that many people in the audience are as well, because there's especially in our industry, so much of it is just online, like you don't actually get to meet people most of the time. Often, like you don't even know how people look or sound. You just like interact with them online, or maybe some of us only interact with code anyway, and not even like interfaces. Talk to me about like what actually, because people, okay, they know, okay, there's a stable summit, it's in March in Cannes, end of March. Okay, 2 days, 2 days in a quarter. You know what I mean? But like the work itself, like what does it actually take? How long do you need to work to make a conference happen at the end of March? Coordinating guests, coordinating the locations, coordinating sponsors, like something like this is a huge operation when you think about it.
I would say, the really hilarious thing that I'm sure many people will understand is that events, especially crypto events, we are working with two key sets of stakeholders who have a very different approach to time. So like when we reach out, so we give ourselves about 3 to 4 months for every conference, and when we start outreach in November with JW Marriott in Cannes, for example, and we say we'd like to book your venue in March, they reply, "Are you talking about March 2026 or March 2027?" Because it's very normal in the event industry to plan events like for 1 year, 18 months, 24 months. Like this is
Wow,
normal.
wow,
Right?
wow.
But in crypto, when we reached out to people in November and said, "Do you want to speak in March?" People had no idea what they were doing. And as recently as today, 4 days before the event, I have people emailing saying, "Hey, can I speak?" You know,
Ah,
um,
wow, it's still.
oh yeah, bro, it will keep going until the day before the event. And I mean, in the past, we have even confirmed a speaker like at the event. The, because someone dropped out and someone was available, and we were like, "Yeah, why don't you just go on stage?" And so I would say the most complicated thing that we have to do is just kind of juggle the timelines, because basically in November, when we reach out to the venues are rushing us and saying, "You need to pay now or we can't give you a reservation." And when we reach out to the crypto companies, they're like, "Yo, March is very, very far away. I can't talk to you for another 2 months." And so there's
Wow.
this kind of like juggling that we have to do to, like, constantly estimate costs and project income,
Wow.
and kind of make sure that we don't get wrecked, basically. But other than that, it's a real kind of like, for me, Pyre, Nick, and a lot of our team, like, it's just, it's a very special privilege to be able to run conferences for this industry. When I look at the speaker list, when I look at the sponsor list, it's just insane. Like, we've really come from, being a very niche conference where you had to be in the industry to kind of know any of the names involved. We've reached a point where the people who are attending really represent most of the world's, anyone who uses finance somehow has had to use Stripe, Visa, JP
Insane.
Morgan, like the kind of people coming, and the scale of the impact and the scale of the number of users, if you consider like every speaker's total number of users, for example, it's just absurd right now. Like, and so, we're very used to the timeline juggling thing. Nick, as our guy who has the venues, is very good at keeping the venues calm while we take a long time to move. And Par on the conference side is very, very good at being flexible, and there's just constant changes on the programming side, and speakers pulling out and sponsors added and all kinds of crazy things. So we just have to keep it very flexible, do some yoga and stress management. Uh, but other than that, it's just a joy to participate in this space. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And really, what a point of really making two words come together and like be all in one place, because it is quite remarkable to think of, like, from a very like inside the industry and very niche conference, all of a sudden, yeah, you're becoming like more and more of like it's what started as a stablecoin conference in a way is becoming like a full-on finance conference these days, like a new digital finance conference in a way.
I mean, no, it's definitely a stablecoin conference still, because what's interesting is just who is using stablecoins now, and who's
Yeah,
interested in stablecoins now. And I feel like all along our role as organizers has stayed the same. So but it's just that the format of how that is happening is changed a lot. So in 2023, when we started, our main job was to filter the kind of super scammy, weird stable coins from like real builders building on chain, and like building novel products on chain. And then as we've matured to this point, our role has become, really keeping things balanced and keeping the conversation fair, because as we saw last year with the Genius Act, with the Circle IPO, kind of there's been a mass shift of attention over to like engaging US institutions, USD stablecoins. There's this huge shift because basically it was not clear if that was legal until last year. And so there's this natural shift. But at the same time, with progress with MICA, and like a lot of work that European banks have been doing behind the scenes, there's actually extremely interesting news coming out of Europe. It's just that there's very different approaches to innovation, and like what we see on the US side is that it's a hyper competitive. These are all public traded companies with boards and stock prices and those things to consider. And so there's this strategy around kind of announcing that like we are doing this, because you can't appear to be falling behind. Whereas in Europe, until the regulations are clear and until the use case is clear, the banks don't announce anything, but they've actually been working on stuff this whole time. And then what's even more crazy is just how, previously we were discussing how like there's this opposing sides like TradFi and DeFi. What's coming out now is that like actually some of the things that like the most DeFi purists, token bryce would support, right? Like pure decentralization, and like are actually beneficial to institutions as well. And one of the European groups coming to represent is Kivalis. And when we were speaking, it's really interesting how they want to build their Euro stablecoin in the open garden of Ethereum. They don't want to use a closed garden private like institutional chain, like because for the institutions there's a lot of value in the fact that in the credible neutrality of Ethereum, and the neutrality means like a competitor can't do shady things. You're trying, some of the institutional chains is like they guarantee privacy, but it's not private to the nodes, and the nodes are whitelisted. So basically, you don't really know who has access to the private information. It's just not publicly available, like on Etherscan. But then in Ethereum, you can work with the EF and zkSync and Scroll and other like solutions to kind of get you can achieve privacy while keeping the liquidity on L1, for example. And so like, yeah, I feel like I'm not answering your question anymore, but that is a general kind of theme of.
You've answered something much better. All good, man. No worries. It was much better than my own question, so I should be thanking you.
I'll make up my own answers as we go, for sure.
I do the same with my own questions. Talk to me a bit about the who's of, and what do I mean by that? Like, who should be attending the summit? Like, as I don't know, as an enthusiast, who should be attending in order to mingle? Who should be sponsoring? You know what I mean? Like, who is Stable Summit for? The way you see it.
I think the way we've always seen it is that Stable Summit, if you work in, around, near, on stablecoins, you should come. You should be there. Just because like there's this very special thing that I'm sure every single person who watches Leviathan news, for example, would know the feeling of being the crazy crypto guy at their family Christmas party. Everyone knows the feeling of you talk to your friends about the importance of decentralization and their eyes glaze over and they just can't wait for you to shut up because, and so it doesn't really matter whether you're a bank deploying capital into a stablecoin protocol or you're just me, a degen who thinks stablecoins are super interesting. This is the kind of only room in the world where you're going to meet 400 or 500 other people who all think stablecoins are super cool, and like I think so. the range is the full list you mentioned. Like if you're a builder, if you're a protocol, if you're an institution, you can come and you can achieve in 1 or 2 days amount of networking that can take months to achieve outside of Stable Summit. You can really meet the whole ecosystem and a whole bunch of new people you don't know. If you're an enthusiast, all the teams you follow are going to be there. And a bunch of teams you don't know that you should start to follow are going to be there as well. It really is for, like, I know this is a bad answer, it's overly general, but it is for everybody in the stablecoin ecosystem. But that's, it's not too general an answer, because stablecoins are still quite niche, even at the huge banks and as the regulators come on chain. It's still small departments and small groups working on stablecoins, And so when these guys come, it's not like they're going to spend all their time negotiating deals between TradFi and DeFi. A lot of it is just going to be super high quality networking among a bunch of people, very, very smart people who have been working on similar problems in very different ways for the last decade.
That was actually, I think, a great answer. It really, as you were explaining it, I was just thinking about DeFi Connect in November, and just how true and how exactly what you've said, how I felt it. Being the first, actually, like that, at this size, it was the first event for me when I tried to come and do some content around and just mingle and just. Man, you can't even understand the fact that the feeling that you get, that like everyone in the industry is there, basically. And I'm really talking about specifically this, because I'll just give an example for people. DeFi Connect was like an event during Dev Connect, but it was like, it wasn't in like the main area where Dev Connect itself was. It was in a different venue, a spectacular one, I must say. And as big as it was, it's not as huge as Dev Connect. And for me, it was a perfect fit, because at Dev Connect itself, it's a huge complex. You go there, and true, like you do get a sense that you don't even get the sense that the whole industry is there. You get the sense that the whole world is there at Dev Connect. At DeFi Connect, which was basically Stable Summit, and again, all the other summits combined, you got a sense that the whole niche of stablecoins and everyone related in some way to stablecoins wanted to be there. And the signal to noise ratio was basically infinite, meaning there was only signal there. And I've met so many interesting people, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy, I had this reaction, several times an hour over there. Not to mention all the other things that all of a sudden, it's not online, and you're really meeting the people, and you're I don't know, eating, drinking, saying hello, high quality mingling, really, in a way. And all the little events like that revolve around it. I really found it to be a great experience. And I actually, that's exactly why I think that your answer there was spot on, because everyone who's interested about stablecoins, I cannot see how you will not have an incredible time at Stable Summit, and not only enjoy yourselves, the amount of opportunities that you will discover there, and fun interactions, even, for example, even if you don't work in the industry, but you're curious about a chance to work in the industry, this is just something I think you should go and explore, to get a feeling of the people who are actually there and what they actually do and how they actually are and sometimes, the barrier of entry when it's in person, it's so much, it's so different than when it's online and everyone is just chats all over the place.
The code is trustless, but the relationships are still very trust based on trust, and exactly. meeting IRL, shaking hands, looking into someone else's eye socket while you discuss things. really accelerates the trust building process. And yeah, I mean, I think everything you just said is so true, especially, the world would be so easy, Advisor, if all 7 billion people agreed with me, you, and CurveCap, like the life, stablecoins will win already. But if that happened, we also wouldn't need a stable summit because, you don't do a conference about something everybody knows, and so it's just, I just feel that, like, that as long as we are all like fighting this fight, as long as we're all like pushing to grow stablecoins and trying to, push this like technology into the hands of everyone in the world, as long as there's still this small group of us working on it, Stable Summit will always like just be the place for us to get together and meet each other and accelerate that growth. Like over the years, we've really seen quite a lot of like speakers and sponsors integrating each other's protocols, attendees getting hired to work at speakers or sponsors organizations. Like there's all kinds of interesting crossover that we see at every edition, and so it's really for everyone. If you watch Leviathan news, you should be at Stable Summit, that's for sure.
I definitely agree with that. Like for our specific audience, I think that it's very likely that this is the conference that you're going to be mostly excited about, because we really are, like, even if it wasn't like the plan all along, we really are heavily stablecoin focused. Like I think that stablecoins are in a way just like everything comes back to stablecoins. You know what I mean? As you're into crypto, it doesn't really matter, and DeFi, whatever actually interests you, end of the day, you go back to the fact that, you know what? To actually be able to do it properly, you're going to need stablecoins. If you actually want to trade, you don't always want to go back in and out from ETH or Rep BTC or whatever. You want a unit of account that you can understand. You know what I mean? If you want to trade like tokenized assets, you can't trade them against ETH or BTC. You have to pair them with what they're actually paired in the off-chain world, and you have to find like a version to it. If I want to, for example, do some kind of business with someone, whether it's like content services that I do for them or onboarding sponsors or whatever, at the end of the day, you need to like sign a deal. You need to sign the deal in like in stablecoins, because I can't sign a deal like in ETH if I don't know if ETH is going to be worth like 2 or 1 or 3K next. Like both, and this is not only for the receiving side. This is also for
of course. Like why would you want to pay in a currency that might go up in value 3x in 6 months? It just doesn't make sense. Exactly. So the stables are really they're just so spectacularly important. And I think what's so perfect is like, yes, that's everything you just said is so true on chain. But then when you go off chain, they're equally useful. Like they're 50,000 times cheaper than the current system of like moving money internationally. Like the average, like if I tap my card to pay, like now I'm in New York, right? But my card is from Singapore, and if I tap my Singaporean card to pay for coffee downstairs, there's an average of 12 banks involved to move the $5 from Singapore to New York. It's crazy, and so like it's not just useful on chain. It's extremely useful off chain, and it's really gonna change everything about how people transact, whether they like know about it or not.
This actually, what you just said actually makes me think of another like question I haven't asked about. What about like neobanks? Like, will neobanks, because it's such an upcoming niche, I think this year, one of the strongest upcoming niche of the past, like, I don't know, ever since 2025 and beyond, and especially now, you're hearing about more and more of it. Just Plasma One was just also announced. Like, will neobanks be represented at like Stable Summit? Have you had some interest from that angle as well?
Definitely. I can't I feel like Revolut was supposed to speak. I'm not sure if they're speaking.
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
yeah, but definitely neobanks are hugely important for 2026. And throughout the year, you're going to hear from neobanks at stable summits. And I think not more interestingly, but a group that we'll definitely have would be your Bridge, Anchorage, M0, the people who are issuing stables to and on behalf of neobanks, right? And so yeah, that's definitely going to be covered um, throughout the year and in Cannes. Yeah.
Okay, Zach, before we wrap up, I want to bring up one more thing. You know, when we were at DeFi Connect, you guys had this game that people had to like find these QR codes and earn like unique prizes.
Yeah.
Okay, so and I'm curious, like, are you guys planning on something similar on this one in Cannes? Like, kind of the, like, you know, conference alpha that you can share with us on that side, or maybe some cool events that you guys are gonna do here, like surprises, whatever you can tease the audience.
Yeah, no. So the POAP thing, we love POAP very much. Shout out POAP. But that works because at DeFi Connect we had 3,000, 4,000 attendees.
Wow.
At in Cannes we're back to our usual small format with just 400 to 500 people, and so the POAP activation just the event just isn't big enough. There will definitely be swag from all our sponsors. Many speakers bring their own swag as well. So there's all of that. I think the only thing I haven't really mentioned in terms of what to expect is our zero TVL hour. So we launched that in Buenos Aires, and it's basically like a pitch competition for liquidity. And
Nice.
we have another hour of that this year with amazing projects presenting and amazing projects judging, like Gnosis VC, Chainlink, and more on the judging side. And yeah, a bunch of brand new, super exciting stablecoin projects pitching on the pitch side.
That's gonna be very cool, I'm sure. Let me just give people an example of the kind of swag that, if you're very lucky, you can get on the shout out kill. Look at that incredible cape that I have here. This was actually given to me by the team. Let me just show you how it's done.
I can't believe we didn't both wear kimonos
Over there.
for the.
Sorry. I should have worn it like ever since the stream started. Now when I think about it, but you live, you learn. You live, you learn.
We'll have to do another podcast.
Amen to that. Anything that I should have asked, should have mentioned that you want to say that people should know towards the upcoming summit? And of course, shout out to the amazing team that you guys have there in on Stable Summit. I think the work you guys have been doing recently online, it's like every hour they announce another speaker at Stable Summit. And I just recommend people check the account over there. It's stable_summit.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And really, you can just go over there and scroll the amazing list of speakers who are announced and panels. And you can also check out stablesummit.xyz to check out the incredible stuff that's on the menu. And if you don't have a ticket yet, I'm sure that people can still purchase some tickets, Zach. Yeah?
Most definitely, yeah.
You can go on stablesummit.xyz and get your ticket now and just enjoy. Anything else that you want to bring up, Zach, before we wrap it up?
Shout out Leviathan News, feed the Kraken. That's it. Yes, thank you so much, Advisor.
Thank you, man, for coming, and hope you guys have an amazing time in Cannes starting this Friday. What time does it start, by the way? What hour?
9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, come for breakfast, and then the talk start by 9:30, 9:45.
Amazing, guys. Have fun, enjoy, and have a very prolific summit. Shout out to the SQUID Pass holders as well at Ratehopper AI. Let me pull it up on screen again. Thank you so much for choosing Leviathan News, DeFi Debt with AI, hop to better rates instantly. Thank you for choosing Leviathan News. And from tomorrow, we'll have this week's winners at OkuTrade. Let me try and find that account as well. Before that, let me show you again, StableSummit.xyz. You can also check out Stable Summit at stable_summit on X for sure. And let me also show you next week's, this upcoming week's actually, winners of the SQUID Pass. Shout out OkuTrade. Thank you so much for choosing Leviathan News. Will be on our pinned post starting tomorrow. You can swap, earn, on and off ramp, borrow, LP, manage your LP to be precise. All that through oku.trade. Thank you for choosing Leviathan News. And thank you for joining, Zach. Talk to you soon, sir.
Thank you so much, Advisor. Catch you soon.
And I like the intro by Arcus so much that I also use it as an outro. So let me just,
It's amazing.
Let me just pull it up for the audience, and have fun, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
それはレバヤさんニュースだ。デセットライズと逃げろ。誰でも音できる。誰でもスキーを稼げる。ガバナンスまである。中集権のメディアはもう終わりだ。
真相から